Welcome to Vital Signs, where we're sharing what's real and relevant in healthcare, wellness, and peak human performance. I want to give you my disclaimer. This is for educational purposes only. This is not meant to be construed as medical advice. As with everything, before you initiate something new into your lifestyle, always check with your practitioners. I'm really super excited to be welcoming back one of our guest experts today, Dr. S Bryan, founder and CEO of Bryan Therapeutics, the expert in all things nitric oxide research. Welcome back to the show, Dr. Bryan.
Jen, thanks very much. Good to be with you.
So, Dr. Bryan, we have talked all things nitric oxide in the past, and you've done a lot of research, and it's moving fast. You've done so much work. You've shared with us some of the key tips, what we should be doing, what we should be looking for. Talk to me a little bit about where it's going, where you're going, where this research is going, and where are those promising areas?
Well, the next frontier for nitric oxide is really drug discovery and drug development and getting nitric oxide based therapies approved and on the market through the FDA. So we have drug programs currently underway for ischemic heart disease, 33 million Americans today with ischemic heart disease, and there's really not an effective therapy for this chronic disease. So we're working hard to get our nitric oxide drug. We're about to enter a phase 3 clinical trial for ischemic heart disease, and I think it's going to change the landscape of how we treat not just patients with kind of chronic ischemic heart disease and cardiovascular disease, but we're also moving this technology into the new frontiers for Alzheimer's treatments, because really the root cause of Alzheimer's is lack of cerebral blood flow to the brain, and it leads to atrophy, and it's called diabetes type 3. So there's a deficiency in glucose uptake or insulin resistance. And nitric oxide directly improves cerebral blood flow, it improves glucose uptake, and improves insulin signaling, and really getting to the root cause of Alzheimer's. And then our topical drug for diabetic non-healing ulcers will certainly be a game changer in the management of diabetic wounds and really non-healing chronic ulcers in the aging population.
You know, that's really super exciting for me to hear. I come from medicine. I'm following. I'm picking up what you're putting down. Talk to me a little bit more on the impact that this is going to actually have on public health. What are the potential public health benefits from these discoveries as we discover this, as we develop these new technologies and actually bring these treatments to the public? What are those real relevant health benefits that the public needs to hear about so they can advocate for this as well?
Yeah, well, really, I mean, what we've learned over the past 40 years in the science and medicine of nitric oxide is really a foundational molecule. And every age-related chronic disease is associated with a loss of nitric oxide production in the lining of the blood vessels. So as we start to develop individual drug indications, so to get a drug, you have to design a specific trial that's approved by the FDA and then show safety and efficacy for that specific indication. So we're going to start with ischemic heart disease. And then we're going to move to Alzheimer's, and we're going to move for topical drugs for diabetic ulcers. But as we get these drugs approved and on the market for the treatment of specific conditions, we'll start to realize and expand the indications. We'll go for things like diabetes, even acne, rosacea, dermatological conditions with our topical drug. But I think more importantly, drug therapy is extremely important for people with already established disease. But I think my goal is to bring awareness and education to the fore so that patients and really the global population can be proactive instead of reactive, because drug therapy is a reactive practice. If we understand the mechanisms of nitric oxide and what individual lifestyles may be doing to deplete nitric oxide, now we can take steps to prevent this age-related decline and be proactive and actually lead to prevention of chronic disease, because it's much simpler, much cheaper, and much more effective to prevent disease than it is to treat it once you have it.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. We all know that adage that, a dollar of prevention saves $10 of treatment and cure, but it really is true, especially with our health. And after all, it is our greatest asset. We only get one body. We're the ones who have to live in it for the rest of our life. So it is absolutely so important and really critical for us and the viewers of the show. So you talked about the public staying informed, keeping up with new findings. How can the public, everybody who's watching this, how can they keep up with what's happening, how this is moving forward, and how they can actually integrate this into their day-to-day?
Well, look, I mean, information is disseminated 24-hour. We have 24-hour news cycles, but unfortunately, there's a lot of misinformation and disinformation out there. And that's really been the source of my frustrations is people not understanding nitric oxide or certain agencies and companies and adverts really not talking about the true science of nitric oxide. So what I try to do is inform and educate on really the science of nitric oxide. What is the mechanism of action, how the human body produces it? What are we doing that leads to a disruption in nitric oxide production? And then how this leads to the onset and progression of chronic disease. But I think you have to go to the source. For consumers and lay people, PubMed, where there's really scientific articles with reference literature on there. Sometimes they're really scientific, really technical. That's always a source. I've got a YouTube channel where I go and try to really take the hardcore science and really distill it down into simple, digestible kind of concepts for the layperson and the average consumer to understand. And that's Dr. Nathan S. Bryan, Nitric Oxide on YouTube. But you can follow me, but it's all about science. I'm a scientist by training and been able to translate a lot of that basic science into clinical medicine and the clinical strategies to overcome a lot of health problems.
Absolutely. And not only your YouTube, but also like you have blogs and things. And I find it very user friendly for the people who are maybe not medical in nature, who are looking to really better their health. I want to go back just a little bit because you talked about some of the parts of the research process in order to get something out to market in the treatment space specifically. Talk to me a little bit about the obstacles and challenges that you're facing and that other researchers in this field are facing. What obstacles and challenges are you facing, and how can that be moved forward? Is there anything that we can do on our side as consumers to help expedite this process?
Well, it's very challenging to get. On average, it takes about 17 years for new discoveries in the basic sciences to make it into clinical medicine. And most discoveries never translate into clinical medicine because it starts usually in cell culture, animal models, and then you've got to translate that into humans. But the number one kind of hurdle or obstacle in all of this is the financial impact and really the financial burden, because it takes, about 10 years and $800 million from the time you start a drug through the FDA to get it approved and on the market. Now, we're a little bit further advanced than that, so that's certainly not going to be the timeline nor the cost of our drug development, because we've accelerated this through some earlier clinical trials. But that's the biggest hurdle. And then the other thing, this is disruptive technology that we've developed, and it has a real potential to disrupt big pharmaceutical companies in the management of chronic disease and this continual, purchasing of prescription drugs that people are on, typically for the rest of their life. And that's just not how the human body's designed. The body's never designed to be exposed to a synthetic compound that inhibits a biochemical reaction, which is what most prescription drugs and synthetic compounds do. What we do is completely different. We use concepts called restorative physiology rather than pharmacology. So we're not a pharmaceutical company. We don't use pharmaceuticals. We're a restorative physiology company that gets to the root cause of human disease, and it's really repleting missing molecules, specifically nitric oxide. So I think this is a foundational molecule. Our objective is to get safe and effective nitric oxide product technology into every major market segment around the world, including drug therapy.
And so let's talk about that just a little bit. Like, what are the efforts and collaborations that are happening so that you can do this, so that this can be brought to multiple markets and really permeate, especially like in the wellness space and whatnot. It's a little bit easier to get things to market in the wellness space than it is in the treatment space. So talk to me a little bit about what's happening both here and worldwide to advance this and get this in the hands of people who, like me, who are looking to optimize our peak human performance.
Well, the barrier to entry into things like dietary supplements and functional foods and even topical skincare and beauty products is really pretty low. You just have to demonstrate safety. Really, you can't make any claims. You can't hurt the end consumer or hurt the patient. And that's what dietary supplements and nutritional products do. So we've had products on the market for a number of years. We've got consumer products under the N101 brand. We make a dietary supplement. We make a fermented beet powder for energy and performance and pre-workout. We've got a skincare line of products for anti-aging, for skincare and beauty. So we permeated the market. We're market leaders in those particular spaces. So those are readily available at n101.com. But really, for me, trained as a drug discovery biochemist, my objective is we've been very successful, by the way, and we've changed millions of people's lives by giving them access to this nitric oxide technology. But really, my objective is to prove safety and efficacy in a number of different disease indications where this is readily available by physicians all around the world, that if they've got a patient in their best medical judgment that could benefit from this therapy, they can write a prescription, they can pay for it with their insurance, and make that patient better. So that's our objective, really, to permeate nitric oxide in every major market segment around the world, from nutrition, dietary supplements, skincare, drug therapy, perhaps even medical foods. That's our trajectory, that's our objective, and we can't be stopped.
So we are going to have to take a brief break, but before we do, a little birdie told me you have a book coming out. Is some of this going to be in that, and what can we do to watch for that?
Yeah, I've tried to chronicle the more than 25 years in research, and the book that's coming out this fall is called The Secret of Nitric Oxide, Bringing Nitric Oxide to Life. But it'll chronicle really my life story, the discoveries we made in the research lab, and how we've been able to translate those discoveries into, I believe, is the most innovative therapy and product technology on the face of the earth. But yeah, stay tuned. We'll have it this fall. We're going to be doing a media tour, and there's even negotiations of making this into a documentary, even a film. So it's a very intriguing story, and it's a little bit uncomfortable for me because I'm not one to talk about myself, but it's really been a remarkable journey. And as I look back and think that's been my life over the past 25 or 30 years, and all the obstacles and hurdles we had to overcome to do this, it's I hope it's inspiring, and it inspires people to, even though you reach hurdles and you overcome you encounter obstacles, you have to keep going, believe in what you're doing, have the faith. Fundamental truths, and truths go through 3 phases. First, they're ridiculed, they're violently opposed, and then they're accepted as being self-evident. So that's the trajectory, and I've witnessed all those. I've been ridiculed, I've been violently opposed, but what we're doing is self-evident.
Yep, when the message is more important than any discomfort we face, we just keep pushing forward. I couldn't agree with you more. We do have to take a brief break, but stay tuned, guys. We've got more with Dr. Bryan after these messages. Welcome back to Vital Signs. We are here with our guest expert, Dr. Nathan Bryan. We have been talking about really exciting breakthroughs and other aspects of nitric oxide research, how we can utilize some of that research and live our best life, become peak performing human beings, how we can prevent disease, how we can maybe in the not so distant future have these therapies available for a wide range of issues that are going to impact public health. And I want to shift gears just a little bit, Dr. Bryan. I want you to talk a little bit to me about what was the inspiration that you faced that had you focusing on this nitric oxide research? Like, what was it that got you onto this, and what really drives you and fuels your purpose? Because this has been your life's work.
It is, like any career or any life, it's a journey. When I look back on this journey, and there were really some pivotal times in my life that I think really changed the trajectory and my focus. I was introduced to this concept and science of nitric oxide when I was at LSU School of Medicine. I was in the working on a PhD in molecular and cellular physiology. And Nobel Prize had just been awarded for the discovery of nitric oxide, so we knew it was an extremely important molecule. But no one had figured out how to deliver this gas safely and effectively, or even what all it did and how the human body produced it. But then going back, when I was 10 years old, my dad suffered a car accident that left him paralyzed from the waist down. So for the past 40 years, I've taken care of my dad, and I've understood, the medical system in really very ineffectively managing chronic disease. And it's not healthcare, it's really sick care. And so my dad, so going back to the nitric oxide story, we really focused on that, and through about five to 6 years of research and development, I discovered a way to make a solid dose form of this nitric oxide gas. It's really the first and only technology in the world where you can deliver nitric oxide safely and effectively in an outpatient setting. But then once my dad started developing more decubitus ulcers from his paraplegia and his diabetes, and the doctors couldn't treat him, nothing they would do would heal these wounds or lower his blood pressure or overcome his diabetes. So that was my main focus, is how do I take care of my dad, and how do I really treat my dad and make him better when the best medicines out there and the best doctors couldn't do anything for him. And he was my first kind of patient one or guinea pig one with this nitric oxide and started treating with the nitric oxide lozenge that I developed. His blood pressure became managed. He was no longer diabetic. And then he had a 4-year-old non-healing wound on his right ischial ulcer, which is right underneath his right butt cheek. In 4 years, the doctors couldn't heal it. So I started making a topical nitric oxide to try to kill the infection and get blood flow to the wound. And remarkably, within 8 months, we completely healed this 4-year-old non-healing wound. So that was enough for me to realize that what we had done and what we had discovered and what we had developed would change the world, because in a 70-year-old paraplegic diabetic hypertensive person, this completely healed his wound and ameliorated many of his symptoms. So that's been my drive, is really when I saw this in my own dad's personal health journey. And today he's 75 years old. Obviously, he's still a paraplegic, but I mean, he's in better health than most 75 years old. He's been rolling around in a wheelchair for more than 40 years, more than half his life. So that's been my motivation, and I've been able to reproduce this in many, many other paraplegic patients and people really all over the world. And so, every morning when I wake up, I get hundreds of texts, phone calls, and emails of people that we've changed their lives by simply having this technology available. So there's nothing more gratifying than that, and that's what keeps me going forward, because now I feel I have an obligation and really responsibility to make sure that people know about this science, know about nitric oxide, and to take steps to improve your own body's ability to produce nitric oxide. And then really our objective is to really overcome a lot of these poorly managed chronic diseases that the current sick care system has been very poor at overcoming.
Absolutely. You gave me chills. That story just really hit me, because it's a common story with people who pursue medicine or peak human performance careers. Usually there's something very deeply personal involved in that, and I applaud you for doing that, because it's hard. It's very hard to find something new and innovative, and to have that discipline, especially when we're working with somebody who's that close to us. So I'm going to ask you the next question, because I really want to know this. And you're taking care. You're a caregiver. You're a research scientist. You're an entrepreneur. There's a lot of roles here that you are balancing. And by the way, you're in peak human performance and health yourself. How is it that you're able to balance all of these roles and keep moving forward with this tremendous sense of purpose?
Well, I learned a long time ago that I don't worry about things that I cannot control. And once you have that perspective, you start to realize how little control we have over anything. So really, I don't worry. Nothing worries me, because I have a strong faith, and I know that things happen for a reason. And it's not what happens to you that defines you. It's how you react to what happens to you that defines you. But I certainly have a purpose. And the famous saying that there's the two most important days in your life are the day you were born and the day you realize why you were born. Mm-hmm. And so I certainly recognize both of those dates. And I'm on a mission. I have a purpose, and I live to serve others. I live with a serving heart, and I think that drives me, that motivates me, and keeps me on the straight and narrow. And I'm just really excited about the path forward and where we're going. But it's a hard work to stay healthy. I try to get good sleep. I wake up every morning. I sit 30 minutes in a sauna. I do my prayers, my meditation, listen to my Hallow app, and then really focus on what I have to accomplish that day. And I wake up with a heart of gratitude, and with a servant's heart, and so that keeps me going.
I think that is sage advice. I hope that's in your book. Is that in your book?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I just want to applaud you for all of that. I think we're very aligned in those ways when we live intentionally like that, and we have that servant heart, that servant leadership. It really shows, and you're bucking a system that has been in place and has been driving a lot of education. And so I guess my next question to you is, for those who are aspiring to really make a difference, and they maybe have a discovery, or they're working on something, or maybe they're working in nitric oxide research, do you have any advice for those people so that they can continue to keep plugging on and doing this? Because it's hard. It's hard when you find something that's contrary to what the system has been teaching and instilling in us for so long. So do you have anything that you could give to those who are interested in maybe continuing this research or other things that may not be along with the mainstream medical, if you will?
Yeah, look, you have to develop thick skin, and don't listen to the naysayers, because the people people will always tell you it can't be done. And to me, that's a driving force and that motivates me. And, I like to do today what others won't, so I can do tomorrow what others can't. And I always keep that in perspective. So, just stay focused. If you believe you've made a fundamental discovery and solved a major problem, then don't let anybody else define you or defy you in your ability to move that forward. Just because they weren't able to do it and your competitors weren't able to do it doesn't mean that you're not able to do it. Always, there's always the impossible is usually always possible with the right mindset, with the right perspective, but don't let others define your journey.
Absolutely sage advice. And I'm going to ask the next question, and that's, how do you avoid confirmation bias? Because a lot of times when we're that passionate and we're that focused and we're that driven to find something, confirmation bias can enter into the equation. So how do you maintain that skeptical eye to make sure that you are keeping that objectivity as you continue to press forward?
Well, that's the beauty of science. Science is based on real data, and we collect data, and it has to be reproducible. So the data never lies. Sometimes people misinterpret the data, but the data are always the data. And that's the beauty of the peer-reviewed system, is when we submit publications for publication, it's a peer-reviewed system. So you have experts in the field that review it, that give an objective, kind of an uninterested, unbiased opinion on the data. What are the interpretations? And then if it's a major discovery, then other people are going to have to replicate it and reproduce it. Mm-hmm. And I think once you're able to reproduce your findings and replicate by others, then it's no longer a hypothesis. It becomes really what we call the truth. And so for me, I challenge people to test my hypotheses, to test my theories, and to put it to use and to put it to the ultimate test. So I encourage that. In fact, I never discourage it. And I think that's how science is moved forward. That's how innovation occurs. But again, that requires you to have some tough skin, because sometimes the critique, the criticisms aren't always kind. But I think you take that information, you learn from it, and then you design a better experiment or test it, and maybe it's something you haven't thought of before. So I encourage it. I don't discourage it.
And folks, he just gave you basically a clinic on how to make sure that you're moving forward and what it means to really follow your purpose and be a true scientist. I applaud everything that you said. I know you've got a big project coming up. I'm really excited about your book. How can people reach out to you? How can they follow you if they're interested? And tell us a little more about your upcoming book.
Yeah, so you can follow me. I'm certainly searchable on most search engines. YouTube, Dr. Nathan S. drnathansbryan.com. I'm on social media, LinkedIn, Dr. Nathan S. Bryan, Instagram, the real Dr. Nathan S. Bryan. My original Instagram was hacked and taken over. So I'm on Twitter at Dr. Nitric. But yeah, and then for our consumer websites, it's N101. Be on the lookout for The Secret of Nitric Oxide, bringing nitric oxide to life. I'm really proud of my agent, Alan Morrell, and Creative Management Partners. And then Jay Boston is the publisher of the book. So I'm really excited about where the future is, and hopefully my book can inspire people, but more importantly, to understand the science of nitric oxide and how important this is for each individual's health and well-being, and really human optimization.
Thank you so much once again for joining us, for sharing your expertise, for helping us to realize some of the things that are already out there and what's coming so that we can become our best, most peak performing human selves. Thanks again, Dr. Nathan, for being here.
Thank you, Jen. My honor.
We do have to take a brief break, folks, but we will be right back after these messages. Welcome back to Vital Signs. If you're just tuning in, you're going to want to go to nowmedia.tv. Click on shows, go to Vital Signs, and catch the first half of the show, because it has been pure gold. We are talking about how do we really engage our health, be the most peak performing human beings that we can. How can we engage with prevention, early detection, and really move our health and our lives forward. We're going to switch gears just a little bit. I have another amazing expert here in studio with me today. I want to introduce Dr. Andrew Doe, founder of Alate Health, board certified interventional radiologist. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jen.
So Doc, we are very big on peak performance, early prevention, and early intervention, if you will, because we know that if we catch it early, or if we catch it before it actually becomes a thing, we're able to save lots of dollars. I know that you have a lot of innovations in preventative health. What are some of the latest advancements that you're really excited about right now?
Well, first and foremost, we're able to manipulate the vascular system even more than we thought, and we're really able to treat men with enlarged prostates, and we're also able to treat patients with very bad venous disease causing healing issues with something as simple as almost a super glue.
Wow.
So it's pretty remarkable. The techniques to do these things are much easier and better for the patients. Everything relies on our ability to see inside the body without having to actually cut somebody open. So all of these innovations have led to better, faster, and more resilient procedures.
Oh, absolutely. And you know, I think that with minimal invasive and with some of the imaging that we've been able to see, it has really accelerated rapidly, especially in the past couple of years. And sometimes the consumer can be a little bit fearful of some of these rapid advancements. Talk to me a little bit about how these innovations have impacted your day-to-day practice, and how do you overcome any of the fears associated with new technology? Because there is a little bit of that today.
Well, one thing I will say is everything we use in my practice has been well researched, and it's only if we feel that this really is something new and promising that we try to offer it to our patients. The other thing, even in my world, talking to other physicians, is I have to educate physicians as to what the new techniques and treatments and machines and devices are out there, so that we can show them that this can be done safely in a morning, in a couple of hours, and they can go home the same day. This doesn't have to be like the old school, you're in for surgery, you wake up the next day, get your surgery, then you stay a couple days after. I mean, those days are pretty few and far between now.
Some people might not want to know that. They might like to kind of soak up that extra sympathy.
Yeah, you may. We always offer to, wrap you in a very large gauze or whatever you want. So it looks like it was much more intense than it was.
That's awesome. So talk to me a little bit more real. I know patient confidentiality is a thing. I come from medicine, but is there an example that comes to your mind of a way that early intervention has significantly impacted someone's life that you have worked with?
Oh, absolutely. And I'd probably say the biggest population is with my fibroid patients, women that have uterine fibroids and very heavy cycles and things like that. And really the introspection that I got was from the mothers of those patients, mothers who had had hysterectomies. The daughter comes in and isn't nearly as bad as mom, according to the mother. And we do a simple fibroid embolization. They leave the same day, and they're just blown away by how straightforward and how easy it is to get treated. And then they realize, wow, the sooner I get in, the sooner I get back to normal.
Mm-hmm. Well, can we dive a little deeper into that? Because there's a lot. I'm a female as well. And, women's health, there's still a lot of shame around talking about things, or they don't even know we don't even know as women what's normal. Even with all the things that we can research, there's misinformation as always on the internet. But how can we open that conversation and be a little bit more proactive as females if something's not right? Like, what are the signs to go get checked or to speak to somebody such as yourself?
I tell my female patients this. I always like to quote Joe Rogan and say, if men had to have babies, there'd be 6 of us on earth. And the reality is women can be the best advocate and their own worst enemy. They're so used to taking care of all the members of the family. They're so used to putting themselves last. They're so used to being in misery for, at least a few days a month. All of these things kind of slowly and gradually get worse and worse. And I always ask my patients, if they're not sure about treatment or if they want to proceed, I ask them if they want their daughter to go through it the way they are now. And they would say, the majority say, oh gosh, no. Mm-hmm. And you really have to appeal to the motherly side of women to really sometimes make them realize how advanced, what they see as just a terrible inconvenience every month is really threatening not only their lifestyle, but their ability to do, the things that they want to do.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And, I think it's so important that we open that conversation. That's part of the reason I'm hosting this show. Honestly, we have to open some of these conversations. We have to open them early. And conversely, the same thing happens with men's health. Men are afraid to go get their check. They don't want to admit that they're old. They don't want to do the prostate. Like, there's so many things around that early detection and prevention piece. How do we open that conversation?
Oh, absolutely. And this is a fight that I have every day, and I am a man, and I am very stubborn, and I see that. And I will tell you, the best outcomes I can get, or the best history I can get, is when the man brings his wife or his partner with him, and then you kind of get their truth and closer to the real truth when you talk to both of them. But we are, we're looking for someone else to push us to go get intervention, looking for someone else to push us to seek help. And the way I approach this with my male patients is, can you do everything you wanted to do 5 years ago? And if there's any reason they can't, well, then that's the problem. There's no reason you're going to age to the degree in 5 years that you can't enjoy everything you did. So we really need to be more proactive. And as males, we're very easy to scare. And some of the treatments that were kind of the gold standard up until now are pretty frightening. And even me as a physician, they were, not something I would want to go through, and they were the only option for a lot of men, especially for treating the prostate. It's a very difficult organ to get to. And the procedures we had for different issues with the prostate really didn't offer us a lot of easy solutions. So, now that we have newer, better, safer, in and out kind of procedures, I think men are coming around to that. And my patient population now, with the new fibroid and the new prostate treatments, they're really an educated patient population, which is great. And the more that they can educate themselves correctly online, the better it makes my job, the better conversations we can have, the more, the better questions, I guess, they can ask. So it really helps everything. But really, you have to just kind of educate people as much as you can and hope that something rings a bell and they'll say, hey, maybe I need to look into that.
So, I'm going to ask a question because it really comes to my mind. What are the questions that we should be asking?
So the questions you should be asking is, like I said, is this impairing my life? Is this something beyond, an inconvenience? Is this something I've noticed a year, 6 months ago, and now it's worse, or it hasn't gone away? Those are the things, time frame, really, you need to be aware of and see how long and how much this has changed over a period of time. And what we really need to look for is, can I do what I could do 6 months, 12 months, 5 years ago? And that's really your best marker for this is becoming a problem.
Okay, fantastic.
And don't be afraid of the doctor.
Yeah, don't be afraid of the doctor. Don't be afraid of this. It really is important. That's why you guys are here. That's why we have experts in the space, and that's why we're here. So talk to me a little bit about the role of lifestyle change in prevention. What role does that play? And specifically, let's address stress, because stress is an exacerbator of underlying symptoms. So
yes, most everything is worsened by stress, and we live in such a hugely stressful society, and especially I feel horrible for my kids. 24 hours a day, something that was stressful at school, well, it doesn't get left behind at 3 p.m. like it did when I was a child. Now they carry it with them. So, minimizing our stress, and really, even if you can't find a way to minimize your stress, try to maximize your balance. Exercise. And I think people don't believe me when I tell them this, but walking. A good walk a day is probably the best thing that you can do. And all my oldest patients are walkers. They're not marathon runners or weightlifters or anything like that. They're just patients that just walk. And the common phrase is, well, I don't like to sit still. Mm-hmm. And really, just being up and being active is really going to help your body as a whole. It's kind of this sedentary, computer-driven lifestyle that we're in, and we need to break free of that and just get up and move and walk.
Yeah, our bodies were designed for movement. That's why we're bipedal to begin with.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Talk to me really briefly, because we are about to have to break. What do you foresee, or how do you foresee technology moving forward? What can we look forward to?
Well, it's really amazing what technology has brought us. it's a little difficult because there's always, as we've seen with some of the recent health developments, there's always kind of this pushback between innovation and regulation. And sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. But really, the future of medicine is becoming less and less invasive and less drug driven, more of therapies, things that are on the verge, like peptides and things like that, that we see with a lot of the new, they're calling them medications, but in reality, they're just substances that are naturally occurring in our body, just used a different way. And I think that's really the progression of medicine. And hopefully it's like Star Trek, Oh, I have cancer in my liver. Here, take a pill, and then you're cured. So.
Wouldn't that be amazing?
It would.
So the moral of the story, folks, don't be afraid of technology. Don't be afraid of advancements in medicine. If you have something that's going on, that has been going on for 6 months or a year, and you're not able to do what you were doing 6 months ago, a year ago, it's time to consult medical attention. Remember, always go to your practitioner. If they are having some of the things that we discussed and would like to reach out to you, how can they reach out to you?
So they can do it either online at Alate, ALATE health.com, or they can give us a phone call, 713-955-1707. And hopefully they can, if they can't see the show, they'll remember that, and it's as easy as just filling out a form online.
Absolutely. Dr. Andrew Do. Folks, we do have to take a brief break, but the good news is we'll be back after these messages. Welcome back to Vital Signs. I am here with Dr. Andrew Do, and we have been talking about prevention. We've been talking about early intervention. We've been talking about the tech changes in medicine and how amazing it has become, minimally invasive procedures, just the way that medical has advanced and how much easier it is than in our parents' and our grandparents' time. So stop listening to the horror stories, folks. Medicine has advanced tremendously, especially in the past couple of years. I want to switch gears a little bit, Dr. Do, and talk a little bit about chronic disease management, because right now we're facing an epidemic of that in the United States especially and worldwide. Talk to me a little bit about some of the most effective strategies that you're seeing today for managing chronic diseases in your practice.
Well, the chronic diseases we deal with most are obviously vascular, and the advances that we've seen are just in becoming less and less invasive ways to open up the blood flow to the patient's legs, or if they're not getting enough blood flow, we can give them more. If they're getting too much blood flow, we can slow it down. I mean, we can really manipulate and fine tune that, and especially with some of the newer devices we have now, we've really gotten away from this idea that the endpoint of vascular disease is amputation. Now that's no longer the case. It's when do you need to actually have surgery for a bypass? And really what we have, the tools we have now in our toolbox just make it not only so much easier to change that and to treat that, but it's also something that's so minimally invasive we can do this repeatedly, and we can kind of obviate the need for anything really invasive and really open surgical.
And so as this has advanced, as medicine has advanced, and you've probably seen it within the course of your career, it's really rapid advancement right now. How are you able to actually continue to personalize your treatment case by case, as opposed to what happens or what used to happen is just, here's the script, you've got this, you get this, done, and everybody was like a one-size-fits-all actuarial model. How are you able to better personalize your medical treatments today?
So nowadays, the big thing is staying up to date. There's so many new things that are coming out, whether it be devices or medications or other non-medications, that you really just have to stay up to date. And we are just learning, even in the last 6 months with artificial intelligence, just what we know and what we understand about disease and disease progression. Hopefully very soon we'll be able to predict, just based on your DNA, what's the best course of treatment or which types of treatment will probably benefit you the most. But one thing you have to realize is we've done well in medicine over the past, several decades at keeping patients alive longer. So now we're having to kind of figure out, what do we do with these patients who have had these diseases much longer than would have been expected? You know, that as you talk about the actuarial look at things, you know, these are patients that 20 years ago shouldn't be alive anymore. And we're doing such a better job at keeping patients alive that we have to really find out, you know, okay, now we're seeing even more advanced disease, more difficult things to treat. And fortunately, our procedures and our devices are really progressing almost as fast.
That's exciting, and it's no longer keep you alive, but keep you a quality of life conversation. And I've really seen that shift, especially in the last decade, I would say. So talk to me a little bit about some of the common challenges that patients face when they're managing chronic diseases, because this show, there's lots of people watching this and they're like, oh, I might have a chronic disease process. What are some of the common challenges they face, and how can they be addressed?
I think one of the challenges we as physicians face is the amount of information they have access to. And I think really where the physician's expertise lies in filtering out what's really good information and what's just information. And that's one of the things, you know, patients will come in now thinking they've diagnosed themselves, and you kind of have to talk them down, or you kind of have to let them know why what they think is so true couldn't be what's happening, or probably isn't what's happening. The other thing we really have to be better about is just seeking help, is this stigma of going to the doctor. You know, I was an Army physician for 20 plus years, and the biggest change I saw in the military over that time was speaking out about mental illness, and this was huge. So hopefully we can get that kind of, you know, push for people. Hey, the treatments are better, they're faster, they're easier, they're much more successful the earlier they're implemented. So, you know, hopefully that can motivate patients to come in and to be seen. And I would love it if I saw 20 new patients and all of them needed nothing other than exercise and a little diet change.
Absolutely, yeah. You know, and that's what the name of early intervention and prevention is. It's getting the things before they become big and really preventing them in the first place. And one of the other challenges I want to just ask you about, because I think it's really important, so many times we suffer in silence. And we think it's in our head because that has been the way it has been. And, you know, grandma or mom told us, well, you can't talk to a doctor about that. That's just in your head, honey, because that's what they were told. So how do we actually move forward with that? Because a lot of people are watching. They're in charge of their whole household. We don't want to perpetuate that. So how do we open that? How do we crack that nut, if you will, so people can start talking about some things that they're having and it's not so stigmatized?
I think, again, this is one of the things where technology is both a blessing and a curse. They can find out, hey, there's a lot of people like me, and, you know, even though grandma told us all that it was nothing, we think it's something, you know, so just to realize that not that diseases have changed, but our ability to treat them, our ability to detect them, and our ability to, you know, keep your lifestyle as active and as complete as you want it is so much better. That just talk to somebody. Like you said, you know, it's difficult to push people to do that, but I think we can get it done. And I think as, you know, physicians, one of our big things is to educate our patients and to let them know, you know, if I see a patient where they come in with, you know, the patient's the mother and the son or the daughter or somebody's there with them, I can tell them, hey, you know, you're going to have a higher chance of having stuff like this happen to you. So you need to, you know, get more active and, you know, do, you know, something else for your lifestyle, because you're probably headed for this. And unfortunately, you know, you can't outrun your genetics.
That's right. You absolutely.
As Jim Fix taught us, you can't outrun your genetics.
That is the truth. And, you know, I'm a grandmother, so now I'm even more in tune with that. So I'm having those difficult conversations with my daughter about medical history from before. She's like, I don't want to hear it, Mom. Nobody wants to hear it when you're in your late 20s. But, you know, it's kind of funny when you become that grandparent and you're like, okay, well, this is something. And it's time to address this because, you know, we need to be aware, and nobody knows what the future holds. So one of the things that I'm very, very big on is habit change and lifestyle change. And it's very hard to break habits. And I know what happens. You get a chronic disease diagnosis, you see 15 different specialists, they give you a book of things that you need to change about your life. You need to change your diet, maybe you have a diabetes diagnosis. Now you need to exercise, you need to change your diet, you need to look at your feet, like all the things that they're still telling people to do. And it's very overwhelming. So how have you maybe leveraged technology, or what have you done for your patients when they have that chronic disease to help them to really integrate the lifestyle changes they need without being so overwhelmed and doing nothing?
Well, the good thing in this age is everybody's addicted to their phone. So as long as you can find something they can put on their phone that will, track and monitor their health, or at least help them to some degree track those aspects of their daily life, then usually it helps. So one of the big things I always tell patients to get is a step tracker. Where even insurances now, they'll give you a free Fitbit or Apple Watch or something that will track your steps, so that if you get over so many steps a day for such a period, then you'll get a discount on your insurance premiums. I think that's an excellent idea. I wish everybody would do it. And things like that, there's so many free things. MyFitnessPal is a free app where you can track your diet, and you can actually do exercise and things, but it's really good for being a food journal. And, I always tell patients this: if you want to get better, you can get better. Of course, there's patients with certain illnesses that, they want to get better, but it's not going to happen, or it probably won't happen. But, the majority of patients, back pain patients, leg pain patients, if you want to get better and it's early enough, you can probably do it on your own. And you won't need even the least minimally invasive procedure. So just trying to get these patients to get something that will show them in real time. Like we're so used to being able to communicate with everyone in real time, but something that shows them in real time where they're at, as far as, either it's what they've eaten that day, how much water they've had to drink, or how many steps they've taken, And one of the things I do with my daughters is, you can go to your room, but you have to have a small cup of water. And it's more of habit reorganizing or habit reforming. And you sit down with that small cup of water and you drink it, and every time that thing is empty, you get up and you walk all the way downstairs, and you you fill it up, and you walk all the way back upstairs. And I mean, we took, my oldest daughter from about 2,000 steps a day to about 8,000 to 10,000. So it's very helpful, and it's very simple.
It's those small micro habits that stack up on one another and create the success. Thank you so much for your insights. It's been very helpful. For those who are watching at home, this is an expert in this space. How can they reach out to you, Dr. Doe, if they would like to learn more?
So they can always go to our website, www.alate, health.com. Give us a call, 713-955-1707. And either one of those, it's just as easy as, giving us a phone call, filling out a form online, and then we'll do the rest.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for your expertise today.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And you, yes, you, it is time to get off of the couch, go grab that glass of water, add a couple of steps every step of the way. Today is the day that we take action, because if you just watch this, you've heard all kinds of amazingness over the past hour, and it takes one step. We must take an action. So pick what it is going to be for you that's going to swing that pendulum, that's going to move your health forward in the direction that you want to go. Reach out to our experts. They are here for you. That is why we are here. But unfortunately, all good things come to an end, including this show. The good news is it'll be here, same time, same station next week. So until then, go grab that glass of water, get a few steps, and we'll see you next time.
This has been a Now Media Networks feature presentation. All rights reserved.